श्री कृष्णा श्री कृष्णा श्री कृष्णा श्री कृष्णा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। When the principles of Patanjali Yoga Darshan are clear, then on the basis of that, the understanding about the Yoga Sutras and their application in our life becomes easier, and therefore we have to have a very clear and detailed knowledge about these Yoga Sutras or the principles of the Yoga Sutra. So yesterday we have seen what are the limbs for the attainment of the Yoga Sadhana: Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi. This we have seen in short. Now let us take what are the principles on which this Yoga Sadhana is developed. Kapil Maharshi's Sankhya Shastra is the foundation, and according to that foundation, the Yoga Abhyas or the principle of Yoga or the practice of the Sankhya Shastra in life is called as Yoga. So Sankhya Shastra is the philosophy or the theoretical aspect, and Yoga Shastra is the practical aspect. And this Yoga Shastra, according to this, will not go into too many details, but we go only to that straight away, that this whole world is nothing but two principles. First is the principle called as Purusha, and this Purusha is a conscious aspect of the world. And second is the Prakriti, and this Prakriti is the inert aspect of the world. So when we talk about the world, what is the world? World is an interaction between these two principles, the conscious principle on one side and the inert principle on other side. The conscious principle is called as Purusha, the inert principle is called as Prakriti. And this Purusha Tattva, the principle of consciousness, is pure consciousness, does not have the influence of the three gunas. It is without any special attribute, it is without any form, it is unattached, it is not influenced and therefore cannot be touched or modified by the Prakriti, and it is Kutastha Nitya, eternally the same. There are two types of eternity, one is called as Kutastha Nitya and second is called as Parinami Nitya. So this conscious principle, the Purusha, is like this. And the second one is the Prakriti Tattva. Now this Prakriti is inert, therefore Jada, and it is exactly opposite of the Purusha. Purusha is Chetana, Prakriti is Jada. Purusha is beyond the three gunas, Prakriti is three guna yukta, so three gunatmika. And the Purusha is Nirgun Nirakar and the Prakriti is Saguna Sakar, and a lot of modifications are constantly happening in the Prakriti. And this Prakriti is Parinami Nitya. Now what is the meaning of Kutastha Nitya and Parinami Nitya? For understanding, we will take an example. If you see a river, now the river has got two aspects. One is the bed, a river bed, and second is the waters. So the river bed is the Kutastha Nitya. It is the same always, whether there is water or no water, whether there are floods or no floods. And the river is the Parinami Nitya. We may call that I have taken bath in the Ganges. By the time you say this, the Ganges have already changed. It is not the same water where you will take the bath. Therefore, these are the two aspects of this Purusha and the Prakriti. And this Prakriti, which is the source of all the modifications and changes, has these three principal aspects, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. And when these three aspects, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, they are in equilibrium, then it is called as Avyakta, or it remains unmanifest. In short, unmanifest Prakriti cannot be spoken of anything because it is unmanifest. And when the Prakriti becomes manifest, then what happens? The three gunas are no more in an equilibrium or balance. And in this manner, these are the two aspects of this world, Jagat. Conscious aspect, Purusha, and the inert aspect, Prakriti. Now, one basic difference between Yoga Shastra and the Vedanta Shastra is this. According to this Yoga Shastra, Prakriti is one, and the Purushas are many. And what Vedanta Shastra says the other way around, that there is only one Purusha, one conscious principle. And this conscious principle is functioning through the various combinations of the matter, and therefore the differences appear. But according to the Sankhya Shastra and the Yoga Shastra, there are many Purushas. Now, whether this is right or wrong is not our concern. We take this principle and study, and afterwards we will analyze and find out what it is. Now, the second thing. When we talk about the Prakriti undergoing the changes, Parinam. Now, what are the different types of Parinam? So, here is another basic principle about this Yoga Shastra or the Sankhya Shastra. As we have seen, there are many Purushas and one Prakriti. When this Purusha comes in contact with the Prakriti under the influence of ignorance, then this conscious principle, the Purusha, manifests as the Buddhi Tattva. Mahabhutanyahankaro buddhiravyaktamevacha. Or in the 7th chapter we have recently seen that Bhumirapo Nalo Vayu Kham Mano Buddhirevacha. So these are all these 8 principles. So which are those? When the Purusha comes in contact with the Prakriti, which is Avyakta, then it manifests in the form of the Buddhi. And this Buddhi subsequently further gets modified into Ahankar. And from this Ahankar, the 11 Indriyas, 5 Jnanendriyas, 5 Karmendriyas and 1 mind, they are created. And also the 5 Tanmatras, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, and after the 5 Tanmatras, the Pancha Mahabhutas. Up to here is the Karanatmika Prakriti. So what we have seen in Vedanta Shastra, Prakriti expressing in the first stage of expression as Mahat Tattva. If you remember, we have studied in 2-3 texts. So first is Prakriti, second is Mahat, and thereafter comes the Virat, and thereafter comes the Pancha Mahabhutas, etc., etc. Now the same thing is said here, only the words are different. So what we call as Prakriti is called as Avyakta. What we call as Mahat Tattva is called as Buddhi. See, I don't know what is the page number in your book, but somewhere it is there. And then the third is the ahankar. This ahankar is referred here as the asmita. Asmita means the ta pratyay is added to indicate ness, gunavatta, ishvarata. So asmita, asmi mane am. So I am. Asmita means I amness. So first is Mula Prakriti. Second stage is the Mahat Tattva or the Buddhi. Third stage is the Ahankar or the Asmita. And from this Ahankar or the Asmita, these three things are created. First, the 11 Indriyas. Second, the 5 Tanmatras. And from the 5 Tanmatras, the Pancha Mahabhutas. This is how the world is consisting of various factors. Now, how many factors this become? So, Avyakta Prakriti, or where the three gunas are in the equilibrium, that state is called as Alinga Parinama. Alinga Parinama means it cannot be indicated. Linga means that by which we indicate something. So Alinga Parinama means the Moolavastha, where no modifications have taken place as yet. That is called as the Moolavastha. Now, this Prakriti, when she undergoes the first change, it is called as the Buddhi according to Sankhya Shastra, or it is called as Mahat according to the Vedanta Shastra. See whether it is on or not. Why it is not working? Check. Then what somebody has gone and done? You have switched it off. Dumb. Okay. So, second is the Buddhi Tattva or the Mahat. Now the third is Asmita, the I-ness or Ahankar. Now this is the technique and the words used in the Puranic literature. If you study like Bhagavad Mahapurana, etc., there we come across this. And then from this Asmita, so this Mahat Tattva is Linga Parinam. It can be indicated. So Prakriti is Alinga Parinam. No change cannot be indicated, cannot be spoken of, because it is unmanifest. The first manifestation is the Mahat Tattva or the Buddhi Tattva, and this is Linga Parinam, the first. So from this Linga, we can go to the Prakriti. So Linga is the indicator, the sign post. Now from this Mahat Tattva or the Buddhi, there are two types of expressions. One is Asmita, which is a common factor. So, Avishesha Parinam. Now, please understand all these things are very basic things. Now, what is the Avishesha? Non-specific. Avishesha or the non-specific Asmita means what? The I amness is a common experience of everything and everybody in this world. Ahankar is a Tattva. Therefore, many people say, oh, that fellow is very ahankari. No, there is nothing like that. Ahankar is a tattva. And what is that tattva? When this buddhi tattva becomes identified with the whole lot, it has to express as the I-ness. So that I-ness, Asmita, he is a common factor in the total creation. And therefore, this I does not have the gender, and there is no plural of I, if you remember. When we do the plural of thou, it becomes you. And the plural of thou, you continues to be the second person. The plural of he or she becomes they. and that also continues to be the third person. But what is the plural of I? The plural of I is we, and we includes all other persons. See? Therefore, basically, there is no plural of I, because it is a common factor, and therefore it is avishesha parinam. That is why I is used by the man, woman, young, old, by anybody. So this is the third parinam, modification of this mula prakriti. And the second, the avishesh, unclassified, common expression is this panchatan matras. So which are those panchatan matras? Shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha. Now, after having come to this level in creation, the next step, from this asmita or the ahankar, these 11 indriyas are created. Now, these 11 indriyas, what we are talking about, as a principle. When we say eyes, we don't mean your or my eyes. Eyes means that instrument which is used to indicate or illuminate the colors and forms. This principle is common everywhere. See? If you are able to expand your understanding beyond individuality, then everything becomes very easy in life. So, these 5 jnanendriyas, 5 karmendriyas and the mind, these are the expressions of this ahankar or the asmita, and they are vishesha parinam. They are specific. Why they are specific? Because eyes can only see, they cannot hear. Ears can only hear, they cannot see. Nose can only smell, it cannot talk. Some people talk at night with the nose, isn't it? So, this is called as the vishesha parinam, specific manifestation. Similarly, these panchatan matras, which are essentially nascent, uncombined. Now these, from the tanmatras, the pancha mahabhutas come. The space, the air, the fire, the water and the earth. So they are the specific expressions. So totally how many? 11 indriyas plus 5 mahabhutas, 16, plus 1, 17 asmita, plus 5 tanmatras, 22, Mahat Tattva or the Buddhi, 23, Prakriti, 24, Purusha, 25. So these are the 25 principles according to the Sankhya Shastra, and this is accepted in the Yoga Abhyas. So, this should be the clear picture. So what is the Jagat? Jagat is having two aspects, Prakriti, the Purusha. Prakriti is Jada, Vikaratma, Trigunatmika. Purusha is conscious, unchanging, Kutastha Nitya. Then from this Prakriti becomes the Mahat Tattva or the Buddhi. From the Buddhi becomes the Avishesha Parinam Asmita and the 5 Tanmatras. And the special expression of this Asmita and the 5 Tanmatras are the 11 faculties and the 5 great elements, which becomes the objects of knowledge and indulgence for the 5 jnanendriyas, 5 karmendriyas and the mind. This is how the whole world is. Now see, when our attention is on this, where is the question of he is like that, she is like that, and why the people are like that, and when they are going like that, is it not a sin and all that? It, sounds as if, we think that we are walking the spiritual path and get lost only in the small little things of life. This world has been always like this. There is nothing worth wasting our time on fighting with the world. Focus attention on this as important. Now the principle of Ishvara is the distinction of this Patanjali's Sankhya or the Yoga Shastra. the Ishvara Krishna's Yoga Shastra does not accept the principle of Ishvara. Therefore, that is called as Nirishvara Yoga Shastra. And our Patanjali Maharshi's Yoga Shastra is Sa Ishvara, Seshvara Yoga Shastra. Now, in this Yoga Shastra, Patanjali's, the Ishvara is emphasized in more than 5-6 sutras. We have seen that is only in the first pada. So, what is the definition of Ishvara? Klesha karma vipaka ashayahi aparamrishtaha purush visheshaha Ishvaraha. Now, you know one peculiar thing. This Ishvara is also Purusha. See? Purusha Tattva. But the same Purusha Tattva with this distinction. What is the distinction? Klesha karma vipaka ashayahi aparamrishtaha. The one who is not influenced by the pancha kleshas, the karma vipaka, the results of the karma, etc., he is called as Ishvara. He is not Ishvara as we have Ishvara in our Vedanta Shastra. The Abhinna Nimitta Upadan Karan, the undifferentiated material and the efficient cause of this world, is Ishvara according to our Vedanta Shastra. Here it is not like that. Here is the Purusha Vishesha, and this Purusha Vishesha is the one who is untouched by the Prakriti. Now, in this Ishvara, Tatra Nirutishayam Sarvajna Bijam, and this Purusha being of the nature of pure consciousness is the knower of everything. And Sa Purvesham api Guru Kalena Anavachhedat, and this Ishvara is the real Guru, because from him only the total knowledge comes. And Tasya Vachakaha Pranavaha, and this Ishvara is indicated by the Om, and therefore when you do Tajjapa Tadartha Bhavanam, when you do the Japa of the Om and understanding of the meaning of Om, what is the meaning of Ma, etc., we will study this in our Prashnopanishad. This topic comes there. And thereafter, Tataha Pratyak Chetanadhigamaha Apyantaraya Bhavascha. And when we thus practice this Omkara sadhana, then all the obstacles disappear and one is able to discover one's essential nature as the pure consciousness. And therefore, this Ishvara is a Purusha who is pure consciousness and untouched by any modifications of Prakriti. After having said this, then the next important thing about Ishvara is, when he is untouched by the limitations of the Prakriti or the Maya, therefore he is never in bondage. So when he is not in bondage, he doesn't have to struggle for liberation. Therefore, who has to do the sadhana now? Come. Prakriti doesn't have to do any sadhana. Ishvara doesn't have to do any sadhana. Our Vedanti Brahman doesn't bother about anything. Isn't it? Now the Jagat also doesn't have to do any sadhana. Jagat is perfectly alright. Isn't it? Who sits in the chair of, a minister's chair? Chair doesn't care. Anybody comes and sits and go, does it matter? The world also doesn't have any problem. The problems are with the Jiva, because he feels the bondage. Therefore, all the spiritual practice is indicated and meant for the Jiva. So, this Ishvara has neither the problem of bondage or the Jiva. And when the Jivas are unmanifest, they are in the Pralaya Kala, totally unmanifest. Even in that unmanifest condition also they are bound because of the karma samskar. So therefore the question comes, who is the Jiva? Jiva is the one who is, when the consciousness or the Purusha becomes identified with the Prakriti and starts living as if a limited one, he is called as the Jiva. So, now the next come. when these five things, klesha, karma, vipaka, ashaya, etc., they are influencing the intellect or the buddhi, and that influence is superimposed on the Purusha Tattva, and because of that the Purusha is considered to be under bondage. In fact, even the Jiva is also not under bondage. See? This is all the spiritual practice. According to Vedanta, you go, don't have to bother about anything, if you have got a capacity. If not, then start the yoga abhyas, that will help. So what the Vedanta Shastra tells, that ayam aham kuto hodi chinvataha aipadatyaham nija vicharanam. This jiva is in bondage and he has to be liberated. So you first of all, okay, bring that jiva whom we want to liberate. And when you search and inquire who the jiva is, then we come to know, really we are not attached to anything in this world. Unattached conscious existence is our every moment's experience. See? We are not attached to anything, we only imagine we are attached. And the imagination creates the ego. And therefore ego is also imaginary. See? How we are not attached to anything, I told in the morning class. Eyes are not attached to colors and forms, therefore they illuminate all the colors and forms. Ears are not attached to any particular sound, therefore they illuminate all the sounds. Mind is not attached to any particular thought, therefore supports all kinds of thoughts. See? Consciousness is not attached to Jagra, Sapna, Sushupti. Whether the waking comes or goes, dream comes or goes, or deep sleep comes and goes, the consciousness is the same. Therefore, the question is, who is bound? So, bondage itself is doubtful. Why didn't you tell us in the beginning? But I didn't say it is not there, it's doubtful. Whether there is bondage or not, you decide. If you feel that there is no bondage, etas samagayan naste, ha vu, start. And if you are going to continue. Kurute ganga sagar gavanam vrata paripalanam atavadanam. Therefore, if we can really understand, then all these things, misery, bondage, everything is only our own imagination. Actually it is not. We only imagine that he or she is angry with me. Like this I come across very many times. Sometimes somebody comes, Swamiji, are you angry with me? So what reply can I don't even recognize you. What anger? But we go on imagining. Somebody loves me, somebody hates me. Unless this process of projection and imagination is stopped, we continue to suffer in this world. Therefore, when the klesha, karma, vipaka, ashaya, they are very much influencing our intellect, and then it is superimposed on the Purusha, then we say that I am bound. Actually, there is nobody who is bound in this world, and that is why bondage is only imagination. It's not true. We only imagine. See how it is. I get married and imagine now I am happy. Then with the same wife I imagine now I am unhappy. What do? I seek divorce, I separate. Then what? Then I feel now I am happy. How long till I get another girl? See? This goes on. So where is the bondage? It's just only the imagination, and therefore this imagination is also not possible in Ishvara. That is why the Ishvara is far beyond this, and one very important topic which is brought out in these Yoga Sutras is that this Ishvara Pranidhanadva on this sutra, the commentator says that this Ishvara is the nearest to the Sattva Guna. Because he is nearest to the Sattva Guna, pure Sattva Guna, therefore he has the freedom to bless and guide those who are seeking help. And therefore, guidance and giving help to the seekers of truth is the job that the Ishvara does for those who are seeking his help. Therefore, Sankalpa Matrena, by Sankalpa alone, Ishvara helps us in our life. And therefore, this Ishvara is the Supreme One. And when we are thus invoking the Ishvara through the Pranava, Tasya Vachakaha Tajjapa Tadartha Bhavanam, when we do this, then we give up all the limitations of this matter of the Prakriti and get established in the pure consciousness. So even through the devotion to the Ishvara, one can attain the liberation according to even the Yoga Shastra. Therefore, Yoga Shastra does not discard the principle of devotion. However, one very important thing to be understood about the Ishvara principle in Yoga Shastra. This I told you a number of times in different contexts. First is the Nirguna Nirakara Tattva. Therefore, there is nothing to talk about it. Attributeless, formless reality. Second is the Saguna Nirakara Tattva. Why is Saguna? Because there are attributes like Antaryami, inner controller, all compassionate, all knowing, Sarvajna, Sarvashaktiman, omniscient, omnipotent. So, these are the attributes, therefore Saguna. But he doesn't have any particular form. Like he is controlling my speech and he is controlling your hearing. So it is one and the same principle. They are not different. Therefore he is Saguna as a controller but Nirakar. So the Ishvara of the yogis is Saguna Nirakar, and therefore yogis, they do the Ishvara Dhyan in their heart. See? Pashyanti yam yogino tasyantam na vidusura surgana devaya tasmai namaha. So these Ishvara of the yogis are, according to Patanjali Darshan, is the Saguna Nirakara. Then the third Ishvara is the Saguna Sakar. In the Saguna Sakar, the whole Pauranic era opens up. So then you have 5 different varieties of Saguna Sakar, not one. Nirguna Nirakar, no variety. Then Saguna Nirakar, only one variety. And in the Saguna Sakar, unlimited varieties. And those unlimited are born out of the 5 basic principles. Which are the Saguna Sakar? They are the Shiva, Vishnu, Ganapati, Surya and the Shakti. These are the 5. So these are the 5 accepted Saguna Sakar forms of the Lord Ishvara according to the Vedic authority. The Vedas accept that Ishvara is Surya. So those who are worshipping the Ishvara as the Surya, they are called as Saurya. Those who are worshipping the Ishvara as Ganapati, they are called as Ganapatya. Those who are worshipping the Ishvara as Vishnu, they are called as Vaishnavas. Those who are worshipping the Lord as Shiva, they are called as Shaivas. Those who are worshipping the Holy Mother, they are called as the Shakta, worshippers of the Shakti. In this manner, this Ishvara of Yoga Sutra is Saguna Nirakar. And therefore, there are only 25 principles as we have seen. And if you take Ishvara as a separate, it becomes 26. But that is not the right way of saying. Because anyway, in the Yoga Shastra, we accept every Purusha separate. So there are unlimited number of Purushas. So when unlimited number of Purushas make only 25 Tattvas, so one if you add, how it will become 26? So it is okay. So we accept only the 25 Sutras. Now after having said this, then next comes the Karma Siddhanta. What is the foundation on which the Yoga Sutras are based? So, first, those karmas which are done in association with the Panchakleshas. Which are those Panchakleshas? Avidya, Asmita, Raga, Dvesha, Abhinivesha. When any karma is done with the influence of these five, such karmas create impression on the mind. First is avidya. When we do not know our essential nature, we have the notion that I am the doer. Second thing, asmita. Asmita is the ownership of all the action. So, that I amness. Third is raga, the likes. Dvesha, the dislikes. And abhinivesha, identification with all of them and the gross body. When these five things are associated in any action, such actions create the impressions on the mind. And those actions which are created without association with the avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, vinivesha, those actions do not create any karma phala. Karma ashaya means karma phala. They do not create any karma phala. And this karma samskar, they are also called as karma phala or karma ashaya. And when this karma samskar klesha is less, karma samskar are less. Kleshas are intense, they are also intense. In this manner, the karma phalas are also again of two types, good and bad, and one has no choice, one has to go through them. Some of the karma phalas are experienced in this very life, some are experienced in the future tense, may not be in this very life. So, those karmas which are accumulated by the jiva and which are not yet beginning to fructify in the present life, they are sanchita and the agami, and they are no more influencing the jiva in the present manifestation. Only the prarabdha karmas, they are able to trouble us. So the other kleshas, other karmas or the karma phalas, they get burnt away by the viveka khyati. We have seen in the sampradnyat samadhi, by the viveka khyati, the agami and the sanchita karmas are burnt away like dagda bijavat, like the roasted seeds. But the prarabdha karma has to be experienced, there is no choice. And they are called as prarabdha karma ashaya. And they are very strong, and even the knowledge will not able to get rid of this prarabdha karma phala. One has to go through. After having said this, then another very important topic of this Yoga Shastra is this. Whatever karma a jiva does in any particular life, like whatever we are today is the result of all the karmas put together done by us in the last life only. Be very attentive. So, in the last life, whatever karmas we have done, all of them are pulled together, a bundle is prepared, And with that bundle, we are thrown in the present life. And therefore, it is said that Janma Ayu Bhogaha, these three things. What will be our birth, where we will be born as a human being, animal, etc. Ayuhu, what will be the longevity in that particular body, and Bhogaha, what kind of bhoga that jiva will get. These three things are dependent on the summation of all the karmas that we have done only in the last life. And they are, when these three types of things are experienced by us, then they are called as Trivipaka Karmashayaha. Because all the three things, Jati, Ayu, Bhogaha, they are indicated. And they are Adrushta Janma Vedaniya. Adrushta Janma Vedaniya means they are not known in this life, they are known in the earlier life. And therefore, once these Adrushta Janma Vedaniya karma, that means which are done in the last life, when they start in this life, they have already given the first result, the birth. So whatever karmas we have done in the last life, total karmas, they are responsible for three things: Janma, Ayu and Bhoga. Now the first result of the earlier karmas is Janma, the present life. Now in the present life, after having come, then Drushta, now we know what is going to happen. So therefore they are called as the Drushta Vedaniya, Drushta Janma Vedaniya Karmashaya. So they are only of two, either our Bhoga or the Ayu is determined by those karma. And in this manner, these karmas are of two types: those which are done in the last life, and as a result of which we have got the present life. So those which are done in the last life total, they are called as Adrushta Janma Vedaniya, and as a result of which, when we got this birth, the same karmas are called as Drushta Janma Vedaniya Karmashaya, which are seen in this world, and they give us only two things, that is Ayu and the Bhoga. So our life, according to Yoga Shastra, is already determined. How many years we are going to live, what kind of Bhoga we are going to get. If this is already determined, why worry? See? The whole purpose of this whole thing is Tam Vidya Dukkha Sanyoga Viyogam Yoga Sandhita. Don't become miserable or any count. So in this manner, these Adrushta Janma Vedaniya karma, that means all the karmas which we have done in the last life, they are very peculiar. Why they are peculiar? Because if you do a lot of prayaschitta and a lot of upasana, they are weakened. That is how we hear the stories that a person was having problem and then he has done a tremendous tapasya, and by the strength of that tapasya, all that was going to happen was changed and his life is saved. So this Adrushta Karma Phala Ashaya, they are possible to be changed by the strength of prayaschitta or the tapasya. Second thing, some of the karma phalas are so strong that in that the small little things are already included. And the third thing, which karma phala will start what time, nobody knows. Therefore Bhagavad Gita says, Gahano karmana gati. It's very, very difficult to know what type of karma phala will start manifesting. And therefore, the ultimate is only this. What is that? Every karma will give its karma phala, and we have to go through that. Now, what are the different types of karma phalas? There are only two, Shubha and Ashubha. According to Yoga Shastra, according to Vedanta, there are only two karma phalas. What is that? Joy and sorrows. So, whatever we have done or not done in our earlier lives, we get only these two kind of things. One is Sukham, second is Dukkham. The result of the papa is dukkha, the result of the punya is sukha. So he who is all the time miserable, dukkha, means what? In the last life he has done a lot of papa. So papis are dukhi. And those who have lived a very good life, meritorious life, they are, see, it is true, they are extremely happy. They are not miserable. Because this is what we are getting in life. Because there are people who are miserable because they don't have children. There are people who are miserable because they have children. Now look here. So the cause is not the presence or absence of children. The cause is their purva karma phala now become miserable. See? There are people who are miserable because they don't have a car. And there are people who are miserable because they have a car. My car is old, others have got new car and continue to be miserable. Therefore the bottom line is this only. Now, the last topic dealt with in the Yoga Shastra is the Kaivalya. Kaivalya is liberation. That's why Kaivalya Dham. Now this Kaivalya is defined by Patanjali Maharshi in all the four padas. This is very good observation. In every pada, whether it is the Samadhi, Sadhana, Vibhuti or the Kaivalya pad, everywhere he has defined what is Kaivalya or liberation. In the first Samadhi pad, the sutra is Tada Drashtuhu Swarupe Avasthanam. When Yogaha Chitta Vritti Nirodha Tada Drashtuhu Swarupe Avasthana, this is the Kaivalya, Moksha, liberation according to the Samadhi pad. Now in the Sadhana pad, it is Tad Abhavad Sanyoga Abhavaha Hanam Tad Drishehe Kaivalyam. In the Sadhan pad, this sutra tells us, when there is absence of the union with the misery, Tat Abhavat Sanyoga Abhava. When the Purusha is no more influenced by the misery, or he is no more getting identified with the misery, that disidentification with the misery is called as Hanam, and at that moment, Drushehe Kaivalyam, the seeker is established in the liberation. Therefore, liberation means only freedom from miseries. In the first sutra it was liberation means abidance in the pure blissful self. Now in the third Vibhuti part it is said here, Sattva Purushayoho Shuddhi Samye Kaivalyam. When the Antakaran, Sattva and Purusha, the Purusha Tattva, they are so perfect, that means Antakaran has become so perfect. There is no trace of impurity, otherness, etc. And therefore, Antakaran and the consciousness, they are one and the same. That state is called as the Kaivalyam. And according to the last Kaivalya pad, Purushartha Shunyanam Gunanam Prati Prasavaha Kaivalyam Swarupa Pratishtava Chiti Shaktihi Iti. In Kaivalya pad, this liberation is defined in two different ways. One, Purushartha Shunyanam, there is no more effort in life, Sahajavastha. Purushartha Shunya. What is the Purushartha? Purushaihi Archate iti Purushartha. That which is desired, sought after by the people is called as Purushartha. So when there is zero Purushartha, there are no efforts, absolutely effortless existence. That time what happens? The three gunas? Gunanam Prati Prasavaha. They go back to the Prakriti. So effortless existence dissolves the three gunas into the Prakriti. And as a result, Kaivalyam Swarupa Pratishtha. So, as a result, there is a Kaivalya liberation, or it is the Swarupa Pratishtha. One is established in one's own absolute Chiti Shaktihi iti, the conscious self. In this manner, this Patanjali Yoga Darshan gives us a very beautiful account about the whole life. Now after that, we will start these Yoga Sutras. Now in these Yoga Sutras, our scheme of study will be, we will first read the Yoga Sutra original, and thereafter the what you call Vyasa Bhashya. That Vyasa Bhashya we will read, and we will try to understand according to the Vyasa Bhashya. There are many commentaries, and as I told you earlier also, we are not interested in any erudition, scholarship, or proving who is right, who is wrong. Our interest is that we are able to follow this principle in our life, and the purpose of our life to discover the truth is attained. Therefore, with this basic foundation, we will start studying these Yoga Sutras, and that will start from our next class. Here we will stop. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnaat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Let us chant together. अथ प्रथमोऽध्यायः समाधिपादः अथ योगानुशासनम् योगश्चित्तवृत्तिनिरोधः तदा द्रष्टुः स्वरूपे अवस्थानम् वृत्तिस्वारूप्यम् इतरत्र वृत्तयः पञ्चतयः क्लिष्टा अक्लिष्टाः प्रमाण विपर्यय विकल्प निद्रा स्मृतयः प्रत्यक्ष अनुमान आगमाः प्रमाणानि विपर्ययो मिथ्या ज्ञानम् अतद्रूप प्रतिष्ठम् शब्द ज्ञानानुपाती वस्तु शून्यो विकल्पः अभाव प्रत्ययालंबना वृत्तिर्निद्रा अनुभूति विषया संप्रमोषः स्मृतिः अभ्यास वैराग्याभ्याम् तन्निरोधः तत्र स्थितौ यत्नोऽभ्यासः स तु दीर्घकाल नैरन्तर्य सत्कार सेवितो दृढभूमिः दृष्टानुश्रविक विषय वितृष्णस्य वशीकार संज्ञा वैराग्यम् तत्परं पुरुषख्यातेः गुणवैतृष्ण्यम् वितर्क विचार आनंद अस्मितानुगमात् संप्रज्ञातः विराम प्रत्ययाभ्यास पूर्व संस्कारः शेषोऽन्यः भव प्रत्ययो विदेह प्रकृतिलयानाम् श्रद्धा वीर्य स्मृति समाधि प्रज्ञा पूर्वक इतरेषाम् तीव्र संवेगानामासन्नः मृदु मध्यादिमात्रत्वात् ततोपि विशेषः ईश्वर प्रणिधानाद्वा क्लेश कर्म विपाक आशयैः अपरामृष्टः पुरुष विशेषः ईश्वरः तत्र निरतिशयं सर्वज्ञ बीजम् स पूर्वेषामपि गुरुः कालेनानवच्छेदात् तस्य वाचकः प्रणवः तज्जपस्तदर्थ भावनम् ततः प्रत्यक् चेतनाधिगमो अपि अंतराय भावश्च व्याधिस्त्यान संशय प्रमाद आलस्य विरति भ्रांति दर्शन अलब्ध भूमिकत्वान् अनवस्थितत्वानि चित्त विक्षेपाः ते अंतरायाः दुःख दौर्मनस्य अंगमेजयत्व श्वास प्रश्वास विक्षेप सहभुवः तत्प्रतिषेधार्थम् एकतत्वाभ्यासः मैत्री करुणा मुदितोपेक्षाणां सुख दुःख पुण्य विषयाणां भावना तश्चित्त प्रसादनम् प्रच्छर्दन विधारणाभ्यां वा प्राणस्य विषयवती वा प्रवृत्तिरुत्पन्ना मनसः स्थिति निबन्धिनी विशोका वा ज्योतिष्मती वीतराग विषयं वा चित्तं स्वप्न निद्रा ज्ञानालंबनं वा यथाभिमत ध्यानाद्वा परमाणु परम महत्वान्तोस्य वशीकारः क्षीणवृत्तिः अभिजातस्यैव मणेर्गृहीतृ ग्रहण ग्राह्येषु तस्तज्जनता समावत्तिः तत्र शब्दार्थ ज्ञान विकल्पैः संकीर्णा सवितर्का समापत्तिः स्मृति परिशुद्धौ स्वरूप शून्यवार्थ मात्र निर्वाचा निर्वितर्का एतयैव सविचारा निर्विचारा च सूक्ष्मविषया व्याख्याता सूक्ष्मविषयत्वाच्च लिंग पर्यवसानं ता एव सबीज समाधिः निर्विचार वैशारद्येध्यात्म प्रसादः हृदंभरा तत्र प्रज्ञा श्रुतानुमान प्रज्ञाभ्याम अन्य विषया विशेषार्थत्वात् तज्ज संस्कारोन्य संस्कार प्रतिबंधी तस्यापि निरोधे सर्व निरोधात् निर्बीज समाधि।